So, we all being of the furry fandom, there is nothing any more iconic or important to one's identity than their persona. But what is a fursona, you might ask? Well, the definition of that terminology isn't exactly uniform again, like across a wide, diverse group. I mean, everyone has different interpretations of what makes a persona a persona. For some, I guess the idea of a persona is more as a personal mascot than it is an actual core identifier. As in, they treat it as a very casual, sort of, open-ended sort of thing, that they are merely a representation of the individual that, they sort of set forward. And with that, a lot of people take it a lot more seriously than that. For instance, in the furry fandom, that is part of your image. Your persona is every part of your image as you are when you show up at cons. Even more so, especially with how people sort of aggrandize the idea of their character. Now, some personas are obviously better than others. But again, that's very subjective of me to say, because if you look at it very objectively, it's very hard to sort of pinpoint the quality of a persona. Now, obviously, when I say quality of a persona, I'm talking about how some personas are so generic that they're not only poorly defined, but there's nothing really identifying about them that differentiates themselves from everyone else. For instance, again, no offense if you happen to have a fox persona. Fox personas typically are seen as just overabundant, and you can only color swap or sort of make the fur patterns so unique. And on top of which, we haven't even started on personality traits or characteristics. Hell, this is quite a topic of interest to talk about. So, getting back to that. So, like I said, some people take it a lot more seriously than the people that sort of treat it as their personal mascot of sorts or representation. And, there's various components to get into this. You have to question yourself. How close are you to your persona? How like you is your persona? And, when I ask that, I don't mean by appearance, I mean by, the character traits. Is it an accurate portrayal of who you are as an individual? Because, some people, it feels like the persona is an idyllic version of themselves set forth in an anthropomorphic, form. And there are various characteristics that might go into that. For instance, again, gonna lay some stereotypes on you. The stereotype for big, buff, really strong, accentuated sort of personas, if you're a man or male, even females to some degree, but not usually the case. And again, going off of this anecdotally here, so forgive me, because, there's not exactly articles I can cite, there's not exactly, evidence, because, let's face it, any one person that's going to say that they're an authority in the furry fandom, I'm just going to laugh at. I would, literally laugh in their face. Even if they were a gray muzzle and had been here since the 80s, I would laugh in their face. I would definitely, lend credence to some of the things they say, but again, so not to get too off topic, but going back to that. So a stereotype that I've noticed is that when you have a really big buff persona that's really strong and powerful and accentuated, usually in real life, there's one of two possibilities. They're usually really thin and scrawny and effeminate, or they're really fat and overweight, not really speaking of a toned, deaf, slick body. And again, not trying to poke fun at anybody, but again, obviously you are not compelled to, match your persona to any degree. But it does sort of beg the question on why it is the way it is, And, some of these idealized character traits that people sort of project onto their persona are things that they could possibly aspire to be. For instance, some personas are dark and edgy, and I guess that's sort of a muse for the dark fantasies that somebody exercises or dabbles in on their off time. And, I would love to have a sit down and sort of interview or cross-reference various people on what they think of when they hear the terminology of persona, but, just talking about it, there's a lot of layers to all this, And, the recurring question I have is, why are the Fursonas the way they are? And, some of the ref sheets that I've seen, like, some people treat it as just another character. But even in doing so, it's very clear that that character happens to be very special to them. Like, as in, that character is special enough that it would be the closest thing that they have to a Fursona, because it's recurrent, it keeps popping up. So, yeah. Anyway, I personally liken it to... I'm going to lay, like, a bullshit theory down. Alright, so, with all due respect, this is going to get a little bit controversial, but just bear with me, just listen to me. Alright, so the Native Americans had the idea of a spirit animal, alright? So every furry, when they set foot in the furry fandom, they need a spirit animal. And how do you get that spirit animal? Well, it's usually one of a few things. Far more anticlimactic than it is anything momentous or epic. So they usually pick either a made-up animal or an animal that they happen to like, give it a unique fur pattern, slap a name on it that matches what they want to see in a name that's cool and edgy and awesome, and then, voila, you have a Fursona. And, Fursonas are apt to change. Just as people change over the years, Personas happen to change. In some cases, people happen to just change their Fursona altogether. Like, they're tired of the character, they don't feel like the character quite matches how they want to be seen in a fictional sense. Not to get too, I guess, outside of things, outside of conventional thought here when I say that, but it is true that, like, people do get, they just replace their Personas. Some people replace their Personas very often. I mean, like, so often, they're just buying up adoptables. They are just, like, they're tired of it. They don't think it matches who they are, how they want to be seen by others. And I forgot to mention, obviously the Fursona is a fictionalized creation. In spite of that, people take it very seriously. They take it seriously enough that there's $100 commissions of artistic conveyance that sort of represent what the character looks like and the predilections and interests of said character. And is in some cases is treated as much as a part of who they are, as who they actually are in real life. And who am I to judge? But some people take it way too seriously in IMO, and whether or not that's a good or a bad thing, that's up for you to decide. But me personally, I just think that some people should take a step back and sort of just take a look at how it looks. And it's really a question of what you think can be improved. But overall, I would say that most people should at least feel satisfied with their portrayal of their persona. And, obviously there's a lot of stylization and customization that goes into the making of a persona. People like to embellish their persona with various other trinkets or things of interest, namely in... actually, I take that back. Some people leave them perfectly, naked or nude, but other people definitely do embellish their respective persona with, basically, various apparel or accessories that they think is important to sort of signify, what sets their character apart or what defines them insofar as how they portray themselves through artwork and various things. And especially speaking about the artwork, people like to draw their characters in sexually, explicit ways. And, there's sort of a culture based around that. Obviously, Fur Affinity being the first place to go if you want to see something like that. And, the pairings between, your respective persona and somebody else's persona is considered to be, a special thing. I say special insofar as... but anyway, deviating from that topic of interest, let's go to what makes a Fursona, top tier, quote unquote. It's not what you think. I think that the embodiment of a Fursona, as far as a physical form, is in the making and construction of a good fursuit. I mean, people definitely dote on the good fursuits out there, and it just makes that Fursona all that more appealing if there's a real-life component to that actually looks like the Fursona in question. And I have to say, some Fursonas don't really lend themselves well to the making of a fursuit. I mean, there'd be so many requirements of making an adequate costume, and that some people have been able to pull it off, but in isolated instances, because otherwise the head's too big, or it's not proportional to the body, or the body would have to be so big and bulky that it's just not feasible to construct it in such a way that's definitely matching the persona in question. And, some people take creative license with that. Some fursuit makers have pulled off some very good results with, what they had. But, again, it's kind of a challenge of the fursuit maker to match the persona in such a way that looks just like the persona as it's portrayed in the ref sheet. And speaking of ref sheets are sort of like defining the persona. It shows the various characteristics of the persona. It shows the various likes, dislikes. Personally, I think that the likes and dislikes are kind of meh. Like, some of the things that people put down are kind of redundant. Like, oh, they hate chocolate, or they hate hamburgers or something. They hate stupid people. And it's like, okay. That doesn't really tell me much about the personality, but again, I think, some people really hate stupid people, so, okay. Are you going to exposiate on, like, the depth of your character, or their personality traits, or what sets them apart from other, like, furries, or personas, I should say? But yeah, overall, I really like seeing, like, a persona that's characterized as a fursuit that's walking around a convention that looks just like the ref sheet. And obviously, it's not going to look just like the ref sheet, but like as close as you can possibly get. But yeah, as far as personas go, I would say that they are a defining feature of the furry fandom at large today. It's basically a second identity by which we identify ourselves in. In fact, if I am in the presence of furries and I know that they're furries, and me being a furry myself, I would feel more comfortable calling people by their furry name, their persona name, like what they go by as their persona, versus their actual real life name. And, I've joshed around with some fellas that, like, it would create awkward situations to do that. Obviously you can play it off as a nickname, but in other instances, like, imagine if the police showed up and you had only known them by their persona name, that you didn't know them by their actual name. And you're just like, what are you going to say? Like, for instance, what if the police show up and somebody's missing? Like, you don't know where the hell they are. It's like, am I going to tell the cop, hey, I don't know their real life name, but we've been friends for several years, and I just know they go by Skittles. Yeah. Dragoneers, X. Like, they would look at me and be like, yo, I think we're going to take you in for some questioning, buddy, because you're acting awfully suspicious right now. But yeah, with that being said, I would have to say that, as the persona being the defining feature, like a component of the furry fandom by which we identify ourselves, it goes without saying that it's very important to the individual who happens to be the owner, quote-unquote, of said persona. And obviously, you get into some situations where people like to steal art of the persona and the masquerade as the owner, quote-unquote. And, obviously the owner of said persona isn't going to be too happy when they find out that somebody's been masquerading as themselves and associating with other people, and, I guess it's the furry equivalent of identity theft. That's the closest you can get it. And I know that there have been campaigns where they just seek out people on E621, or I should say F-list, for like masquerade or using their persona as like an identifying character by which they portray themselves in roleplay. And that's a whole nother topic of discussion I'm going to get to sometime. But yeah, that's pretty much all I can say off the top of my head about persona, what makes a persona, the various qualities and phenomena surrounding the persona. But yeah, it's a unique identifier by which we in the furry community like to identify ourselves and embellish a idealized likeness by which we want to be seen by others as. And the deviations between the real-life component, as in the person behind the persona, versus the persona themselves, are very apparent, and leads to some very interesting situations, especially when, the persona is the opposite gender of the person that's actually, the creator of said persona, and still uses that as their persona. And, it gets very, deep and profound, I guess, but at the end of the day, a large component of that is the porn. And for those of you that don't engage that sort of thing, you're prudes. No, I kid. But in all seriousness, it's pretty undeniable that like, you know, a huge part of the furry fandom is devoted to the pornographic aspect of things. And, you know, the explicit, risque portrayals, and it's just so many, like, little things that go into, you know, Fursona and the various things that people tend to do with them. But yeah, I think that's pretty much all I can really say off the top of my head. So, you know, I might exposiate on this sometime, try to lend more depth to my sort of analysis of all this. You know, we can just talk about the various things. How about your favorite Fursona? What are some of your favorite Fursonas out there? Me, personally, I am totally not biased when I say that I like JSNFX's Fursona, Virgins. And I think Kabir's Fursona is pretty cute too. But, again, I might have said that I wasn't biased. Yeah, I'm biased. I fucking, like, played Amorous like the Dickens, and I probably am going to go back to it sometime to play another round or two for the appeasement of my fan base, how small it is. I think 500 is a pretty good number. What do you all think? Anyway, Majira Strawberry, definitely, like, you know, that's his brand, pretty much, at this point. He's recognized as that, his Fursona, and, you know, has a whole YouTube channel devoted to that. And it's kind of, like, striking how he sort of just came to prominence. Like, one day, I'm just, like, you know, watching YouTube, and everyone's talking about this Majira Strawberry character. Oh no, I hear he's drab and boring in real life, but that's a topic of discussion for another video. So, that being said, my favorite Fursona so far, right now, as we speak, is probably JSNFX's, being Virgins. Again, you can quibble with me about his character traits and his personality, but I certainly can give a respectful nod in his direction. So, anyway, with that, I'm going to just end this video and, you know, think of a new topic to talk about next time as it relates to the furry fandom. So, till next time, guys, take care and peace. I hope you all have a better one.